Hi there, I'm Marissa Evangelista, a gallery assistant at MFA, and I will be introducing Paint Annapolis juried artist, Rana Geralis. Rana was born in the beautiful countryside of Lynchburg, Virginia, near the Blue Ridge Mountains. She was exposed to the beauty of nature at a very early age. This beginning has translated into a deep love and appreciation of the outdoors. Rana later moved to Columbia, Maryland, where she now resides with her husband and daughter. She attended the Maryland Institute College of Art and Design as part-time and has taken numerous plein air and figurative workshops.
Thank you, Marissa, for your support in producing these Will Talks. And Raina, thank you very much for allowing us to talk with you today. Of course, you are one of the fortunate juried artists into the Paint Annapolis program that begins in the first week of June here and is sponsored or organized by the Maryland Federation of Art. So this is really an attempt for me to be the facilitator for potential attendees and perhaps even patrons who will come to Paint Annapolis, enjoy Annapolis and your work and get to see it there literally while you're creating it because it is a plein air event. First thing that I would like to ask you, Raina, is you have only become, I think, a participant in these plein air programs recently, right?
I did the non-juried event last year, maybe about 4 years ago or so. I started with the Ellicott City paintouts.
Oh,
Yeah, I've been
okay.
doing that for a few years.
Okay. So if you haven't attended to that many of them or participated in that many of them, then you don't really have anything to compare Annapolis to except your experience last year, and that was not as a juried artist. So it's a little different. What inspired you to submit your work to the scrutiny of a juror and sort of step up your participation to that level?
Just to try to, you know, better myself, I guess, as an artist or get more recognition and that type of thing. So,
Well, that's one of the reasons that we're putting it on is to try and help artists build their reputation, build their resume, build their patron base, et cetera. And we feel that we've been pretty successful. And part of the success of that for the MFA, of course, extends to you artists. And so we're very glad that you decided to submit your work to the juror and it was accepted. So let's jump right ahead to the first image of your work. I like to think that I don't promote the cliches of art speak, but I am I am older and I in my academic work was mostly interested in late 19th and early 20th century American art, especially painting. And this particular painting, the way that you've painted it, as well as the subject, resonates a lot with me. And instead of using the cliched, now probably somewhat offensive term, but in the criticism of that era and the way that artists spoke to one another about their work, this would be called a very vigorously painted landscape or boldly painted. Did you use the palette knife at all for this?
yeah, I basically just use a palette knife. Yeah. And I used a big knife on this painting. It was at one of the locks at the
Mhm.
Potomac.
You used primarily the palette knife for all of your
Pretty
work.
much, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I might
All right.
do sketching in the beginning, a little bit of a brush in the beginning, like just to sketch it out,
Hmm.
my composition. But then I use the knife, and sometimes I don't even do that. I'll just go to the knife and do everything. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Why have you chosen to do that? The palette knife has, like every tool, it has its advantages and disadvantages, and
Right.
it's unusual for an artist to be so reliant on just the palette knife. So why did you choose that?
Well, I like the way it puts the paint on cleanly. I mean, you have to wipe it off, obviously, but and you can do bigger, you can cover better and faster. And with plein air, you really need to do it. You need to get
Hmm.
your paint on quickly. And I felt like the more I used it, the better I got with it.
Yeah.
And that's why I decided to just stick with the knife only.
Then,
Different sizes. I mean, this was obviously a big knife, but I think I did,
yeah.
I go in with smaller knives too.
Was it a teacher that sort of introduced you to the palette knife, or what was it that got you first to experiment with it?
I always used it, but never exclusively, just palette knife.
Hmm.
But
Well,
I
it
just,
does give your work, and now that I've looked at some of your work online, and I think I remember your work from last year as well. It's extremely vigorous. It's very energetic. So when you paint in plein air, you're painting rapidly on the one hand, just for very pragmatic reasons. You only have a certain amount of time to accomplish the work to be submitted to the jurors and all of that. But is there any other reason? What else is motivating you when you paint in a competition like Paint Annapolis?
I like the immediacy of it, like, right, doing a painting all in just a few hours. I like that. I like to paint that way. I basically am a, a la prima painter. So
Oh, okay.
I enjoy that. I tend to not like to, some people do all the layering and their work is beautiful, but I just enjoy doing it in one session.
So that's you. That's the
Right,
way you feel. That's the way you found the tool to capture that emotion, that experience, and transfer it to the canvas.
right, right.
It
That's
does
what
it does make you very distinctive, I think, in today's world of plein air painters, at least as I know it. They are many of them more impressionistic in the sense of light touches, small touches of the brush, a lot of emphasis on light. But for you, using the palette knife, I think it's inevitable, but you here show a real strength, a real substance. Even the way you paint the trees, you may have painted them very quickly, but I mean they're very solidly real objects in the composition. Is that part of what you're consciously seeking to do?
I would say so, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now this is where what I was just saying about contemporary plein air painters seem to be very impressionistic. I mean, in the sense of the icons of impressionism, like Monet. Here the palette is very similar to what Monet and some of the French impressionists relied on in the 19th century. But again, the vigor of your application of the paint is quite distinctive. I mean, nobody, I don't think, at least not somebody who's been looking at paintings as long as me, would look at this and think Monet. I think more of the so-called post-impressionist painters, somebody like Van Gogh, or even the German expressionists, who
Right.
just the way you've been talking about your tools and what you're trying to accomplish, it sounds more in line with them. Have you studied? Do you study? Go to exhibits and think about these earlier masters of landscape painting, or is this more just purely you, the way you've developed your style of plein air painting?
I would say probably both. I mean, I love to look at other, artists, what you're talking about, and I study, I look at their work and study their technique or try to understand it. But it is me though, but in the end,
Yeah.
it's
Oh, yeah.
at least I try to want it to be my style or whatever.
You've been very successful with that. It's a very
Well,
distinctive personal style. Just a final question about the artists of the past. Does it bother you if somebody like me, who I am a trained art historian, starts to try and fit you into a box, if you will, with other artists, or you're just doing your thing and letting the chips
if it's
fall?
if it's an artist I like, I think it's great.
Of course, the painting that we just looked at, and the first one, but not quite as much. This is a subject that I think you could find anywhere in our area. But before I talk about your interest in painting in Annapolis, the Blue Ridge is a beautiful place.
Mhm.
And there are so many pastoral scenes, rivers and forests and farmhouses and, just all of these things that a plein air painter loves. Do you regret not being in?
Yes, I miss it a lot. Yeah. And I go back, my sister lives there, so I go to see her a lot, but I don't get down there often. I hear you. And I take pictures a lot when I go down there.
Oh,
So
okay. So
make
you
sure,
do
and I
use
do
the,
try to get out and paint a little bit if I can't have the time.
so I really do hear a little bit of twang from the mountains of Virginia, right?
Yeah, yeah. Hasn't gone away yet.
I was born in Georgia and lived there until I was 5, and I started kindergarten in New Jersey. And my accent was pointed out constantly.
Yeah.
By the time I was 6, it was gone except for 2 words. Anyway, this is a painting where the structure almost becomes three-dimensional. How many layers of paint, or how thick is the paint layer here on the house?
It's heavy. And that's another thing that I do is I paint with thick paint. I don't thin it out, or I just lay it on with the
Uh-huh.
knife. And this was done with a pretty big knife too.
Yeah, yeah.
The hard part is getting it accurate, when you're
Mhm.
doing that, because it has to look like at least I want it to look like what I'm painting.
Yeah.
So that's the hard part, is getting it right. So sometimes some turn out better than others, of course, but
All
right.
artists have that experience.
Right.
I'm a photographer. You can't
Yes, I
believe
see
how
your
many things
photograph.
I look at and I say, why did I even save that file? It's awful.
There's always
What?
something you can learn from them, right? Even
Yes, that's right. If you
you
can
don't
stand the
like.
pain of looking at them again, you can learn something. When you come to Annapolis in a few weeks, what area of the Annapolis and the surrounding area are you most excited about painting?
I love to paint the water in the boats. I don't get that opportunity much, so I'm excited to do the water in the boats. And I like
Um,
old architecture too. So
yes, yeah. Oh, well, then you've got plenty to paint. You won't hardly have to leave city dock unless they make you. But if you go out into the countryside, I didn't look at this year's exact schedule, but usually there's a day where we send the artists out into the countryside a little bit. What sort of things are you looking for there? I noticed that on your gallerist's website, there's a lot of paintings of horses.
yeah, well, I used to work with horses, so um, I'm
That's what I
familiar,
thought.
I'm familiar with them. Yeah,
As a rider, as a groom, as all of the
I used to
above.
groom horses for the
Yeah.
yeah.
I thought there was a real sort of feeling for the horses that I
Yeah, I've
like.
been around them a lot. Yeah.
My wife's first cousin is I don't know quite what the right word for him is. He's more of a businessman, but he has been the owner. He does this kind of thing where he'll sell shares in a horse that he's bought, and then all the people who buy a limited number, he'll set a number. He gets that amount of money to care for the horse, and then they all share the winnings. And a couple of years ago, one of his horses won the Kentucky Derby. And it's interesting to compare the sort of vitality and physicality of your paintings of horses to seeing these photographs and sort of stylized paintings of the great Kentucky Derby thoroughbreds. I mean,
Mhm.
that's why I say I think you had a real feeling, a connection to the horses. If you come to Annapolis and have a good experience here, I hope you'll return. But going forward from what I've seen of your work online and what we've looked at today, what do you think might be next steps for you in terms of your painting technique or your subjects? Do you think this is sort of a springboard to something else, or do you have something else in mind?
Well, I'm supposed to start teaching in the fall, so I'm excited. Well, just excited about that. So fall and winter. So I'll be teaching for the Yellow Barn.
Oh, well, that's cool. I hear a lot of good things about the
Yeah,
instruction there. Are you doing that because you want the experience of interacting with other artists who
yeah.
are just progressing?
I think so. Yeah. I've never done it before, so I'd like to try it, see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
My first class is a plein air, so
Start with what you know best.
yeah, exactly. The,
Have you met David Diaz?
I've seen him, but I don't think does he work at the Art League? Do you know?
He has exhibited there, but he doesn't submit there very much
Okay, that's
anymore.
where I've seen
Uh,
him there. I've seen him there before, but I don't know him, and I never been like formally introduced to him. But
he's a wonderful fella
yeah.
and he's a great painter. And the reason I ask is because he taught for about 30 years before he retired or resigned or whatever he did. And he's very successful with his landscape paintings. And his paintings are, to me, on one level, a lot like yours in the kind of the structure of, he uses the brush mostly, but
Mhm.
the way that he builds his compositions, you're doing it with the palette knife and more physically, boldly. But anyway, the real reason I brought his name up is he's one of the juried artists. He used to be the president of our board at the MFA,
Mhm.
and he's a very, very nice fellow. And you might really, I think you would enjoy talking to him, especially as you prepare to be a teacher. So if I see the two of you nearby one another, I'll certainly introduce you.
I have to
Well,
ask
that's
him
pretty.
pointers.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and I'm sure he'd be happy to share a few pointers with you, because he's that kind of person that connects with others and wants to help others. Raina, is there anything else you want to add or say before we wrap up?
No, but I'm just very excited to be participating and can't wait.
Well, welcome to Paintonapolis, and thanks for participating today. It was a real pleasure to talk to you, and I look forward to seeing your work that you produced during Paintonapolis and after. And Marissa, as always, thanks for your support putting the program together. So I think we'll wrap up and call it a day.
Thank you guys so much. And especially thank you, Raina.
Thank you, Marissa and Will.
Yeah,
Thank you very
uh,
much.
thank you. You're welcome.